Testing? Okay, great. Ladies and gentlemen, if we could come to order, we are going to call to order our quarterly meeting of the Tennessee Higher Education Commission. I want to welcome all of our guests here and staff and my fellow commissioners. I hope everybody is doing well, and we're glad to see you. The first item on our agenda is to take attendance. Madam Secretary, would you please call the roll?
Chairman Cope.
Here.
Commissioner Allman.
Present.
Commissioner Kingsolver.
Present.
Commissioner Coben.
Here.
Commissioner Matlock. Commissioner Moser.
Here.
Commissioner Scarlett.
Here.
Commissioner Stafford.
Present.
Commissioner Wharton.
Here.
Commissioner Winton.
Here.
Secretary Hargett. Treasurer Lillard.
Here.
Commissioner Morrison.
Nathan James here for Commissioner Morrison.
Comptroller Mumpower. Chair, you have 11 members and a quorum.
Very good. Thank you, Madam Secretary. Next item on our agenda is approval of the minutes of our July 28th, 2022 meeting. The floor is open for a motion.
So moved.
A motion, Secretary Wharton.
Seconded.
Second, have a second. Any discussion on the minutes? Hearing none. Let's see, do we need a roll call, Shauna?
Yes, sir.
Okay. That's right. Okay, thanks. All right, Madam Secretary, please call the roll.
Chairman Cope.
Aye.
Commissioner Allman.
Aye.
Commissioner Kingsolver.
Aye.
Commissioner Coben.
Aye.
Commissioner Moser.
Here. Aye.
Commissioner Scarlett.
Aye.
Commissioner Stafford.
Aye.
Commissioner Wharton.
Aye.
Commissioner Winton. Secretary Hargett. Treasurer Lillard.
Aye.
Comptroller Mumpower. Chair, you have 11 ayes.
Very good. The motion is carried. The minutes are adopted. Oh, okay, I missed one. Okay, yes, I'm sorry. The next item is to adopt our agenda. I'm so sorry I missed that part. So, floor is open for a motion to adopt our agenda as presented.
So moved.
The motion is there. Second?
Second.
All right, we have a second. Madam Secretary, please call the roll.
Chairman Cope.
Aye.
Commissioner Allman.
Aye.
Commissioner Kingsolver.
Aye.
Commissioner Coben.
Thanks for catching me.
Commissioner Moser.
Aye.
Commissioner Scarlett.
Aye.
Commissioner Stafford.
Aye.
Commissioner Wharton.
Aye.
Commissioner Winton. Secretary Hargett. Treasurer Lillard.
Aye.
Comptroller Mumpower. All right, Chair, you have 11 ayes.
Very good. The agenda is adopted. Okay, the next item on our agenda is the chairman's report, and we have, those of you who have seen the, excuse me, the agenda know we have a really packed schedule this morning, so I will keep my comments brief. I just want to mention I was not present here at our July meeting this last time when we elected officers. I was on an Alaska adventure with my family, so we had a great time, but I got elected chairman again at that meeting, and it has been a real pleasure to serve it, and I very much appreciate the vote of confidence, but I'm also ready to pass this gavel on to one of my fellow commissioners. And so I just wanted to announce that we will be electing a new chairperson at our January meeting, and so look forward to that process. And with that, I'll turn it over to Dr. House.
Well, first and foremost, many, many thanks to Chairman Cope for his many years of service. Can you all join me in thanking him for his years of service as our chair? So unless I have very much missed something, Commissioner Cope will remain, or still chairman, I suppose, will remain on the board. He will just not be serving as chair unless I have really missed part of that announcement.
That's
Okay.
all right. Yeah.
So thank you, Evan, always for your support and your engagement. Want to welcome Memphis President Hardgrave to his first ever THEC meeting. President Hardgrave, will you please stand and be acknowledged by the group? Welcome to you. Very much looking forward to continuing to build our relationship and to work with you, sir. I will be very brief. To Chairman Cope's point, we do have a very, very full agenda, as the November agenda often is. But I do just want to share a couple things. If you are a member of the College Access and Success team, please raise your hand. Okay, so they're all in the back corner. So I'm gonna look at them. So since May, with the release of the College Going Report, THEC's first ever College Going Report, produced by Stephen and Amanda and the research team who is also over there, so I'll just direct my comments this way. We have had many important, robust conversations about what to do now as college going in Tennessee continues to struggle post-pandemic. And you'll hear a lot more about that from Amanda in a couple minutes. But we had a big convening in May, we had a big convening about a month ago, and have since launched what we are calling a momentum year for the class of 23, throwing everything at the wall to see what sticks. We know what sticks, we know what works in this state, doubling down on what works to re-engage students in the college-going process. When we think about the college-going rate, we often think about students coming right out of high school, but also thinking critically about how to encourage adults to re-engage with higher ed as well. So can Sam raise her hand? Today is Sam's birthday, so happy birthday to Sam. Sam's leadership of this team and of this initiative has really spearheaded much of this progress that we've seen already. We have had regional meetings, many of you have been there, and this is really just going to be the theme of what we do this year, is really talk about momentum, talk about college going. So as a result of the hard work of this team and of many, many, many others here, I see Randy here, nobody from Tennessee Achieves or Airs is here, I don't think, but all of the work that is happening in, oh, Graham is here, where's Graham? All of the work that is happening in this space, the Tennessee Promise application closed this week, and I am so excited to announce for what I think is the first time, we had the highest number of Tennessee Promise applications since the inception of Tennessee Promise. We had almost 65,000 applications when the application closed this week, which is a 3 percentage point increase over last year. So all of these conversations that we are all having about momentum and college going and getting things back to where they were, acknowledging that the world is a little bit different now, it is working and the needles are moving. So credit to everyone, credit to this whole side of the room over here. That is really, really good news. So that's very exciting news to share this morning. The only other thing I will mention before I cede the floor to Chancellor Tidings is that those of you who've been around forever will remember the days of the system reports, that it used to be the case that at every commission meeting, someone from the Board of Regents, someone from the University of Tennessee, and then subsequently the LGIs would make a report about what is going on at their institution or their systems. We've gotten a little bit away from that just because of timing. We are experimenting with ways to get back into that. So with that, I will ask Chancellor Tidings, and I don't know if Dr. Deaton or anyone else will be joining at the podium. I'll ask Chancellor Tidings to give a brief TBR system update, and we'll continue to experiment with how to best give the systems and the institutions some more time on these agendas. So Chancellor Tidings, the floor is yours, ma'am.
Well, good morning, and thank you, Director, Commissioners, for allowing me to be with you today. And I know that tidings and brief don't go in the same sentence very often, but I will do my best this morning to be somewhat brief. Before I get started on my presentation, though, I would like to recognize our Vice Chair is with us today, Emily Reynolds, and then also the TBR team, all of the staff, if you'd raise your hand, that helped in everything that we're going to be talking about today. What I'd like to do is to give you an update on where we are at TBR. It has been a hot minute since I've been here to talk with you and update you on what we've been doing. It's also a time where we have just completed our 5-year report. We've looked at what we've been doing over the last years, and we've also been working on our strategic plan. The QR code that's in the top right corner of the slide that you see there will take you directly to our full strategic plan, which I won't go into today, but I'd like to share with you that it is based on our mission, a very succinct mission of student success and workforce development. That's what we do, that's what we're about, and it's what we focus on every single day. The three signs that you see in the middle are the 3 pillars of our strategic plan: open access, completion, and community and workforce development. Well, what brought about or what happened over the last 5 years that has been catalyst for change at TBR? Each of you at this table has been somewhat directly involved in those major seismic shifts that have happened in the state of Tennessee. And they have been a great catalyst for change in the way that we are structured at TBR. To briefly mention them, the 5 that are listed here is the Complete College Tennessee Act of 2010, the Drive to 55, which started in 2013, the Campus Safety and Security Task Force, which was completed in 2016, again including all LGIs at that point, the Focus Act, which happened in 2016 and allowed TBR to now strategically focus on community and technical colleges, and then the Career and Technical Education Investments, which started in 2019, initiated by Governor Lee. To tell you where we are as a system, the first effects of COVID-19 you can see in the red bar at the very bottom of 2022. You can see that we dropped down just a little bit in our credentials that were issued through TBR. But what I'd also like for you to notice, if you look at the years from 2017 to 2021, we had some of the largest increases that we've ever had in credential production in a year. So we were on the right track. We got a little bit sidelined when it came to COVID, but hearing the big announcement that's just been made regarding Promise, I think that we will have no more red lines, hopefully, when I come back to talk to you again. If you will look at the graduation rate, it did not fall off. Now, while we were having fewer students enter our programs between 2019 and 2020 and into the 2021 fiscal year, our graduation rate actually increased. Now, what that says to me is that we were doing a better job with fewer students than we've ever done before. So we've consistently been able to increase the number of students that are graduating from our colleges. We've been able to put in strategies and work more diligently to make sure that those that are coming to us, we're able to help walk across the finish line. I also want to point out one fact that I think sometimes goes unannounced or untalked about these numbers. This is IPED's reports, and an IPED report only captures first-time, full-time students at a community college. It does not include adult students, returning students, and dual enrollment students. So what you're looking at is only those students that are coming to us directly out of high school as a first-time, full-time student. And so a lot of people talk about, well, TBR only has a graduation rate of 26%. That's pitiful. That's only for those students that are coming first-time, full-time. We are actually well ahead of the nation on our first-time, full-time graduates. And so when you add in the other students that are in our system, our adults, our returning students, our dual enrollment students, our graduation rate is well above 50%. At many of our colleges, it's above 70%. So you have to look at that in totality, and it does make a difference. Community colleges did face the most significant enrollment challenges during the COVID period. You can see the sharp drop-off here. An interesting point is that degree production, though, was twice as high, again, for these colleges as their enrollment figure. The freshman class was down almost 6,000 students since 2017. So we know that our biggest decline was in that Promise student, was in that first-time, full-time freshman. So again, the news that Director House has said is extremely exciting to us as a system. Where did we lose students? We had 4 community colleges that actually had an increase in freshmen. They're listed here. You can see them. It was Cleveland, Motlow, Nashville, and Walters State. But one of the interesting facts that we found is that we also had an 8% increase in our Hispanic population across the system. So while we were losing in that first-time, full-time freshman, our Hispanic population went up. And then what was even more surprising is the tremendous increase we had in dual enrollment students. The very first year of COVID, we saw a dip because we could not communicate with the high school students. That first year of COVID, they were not in school. We were not able to go to the high schools. We were not able to have those discussions with the counselors, with the students, with the parents. So we did see a dip. But as soon as everyone got back in class, we made up for lost time, and we had more in dual enrollment students than ever before. But that was not the case at our TCATs. Our TCATs never went down in enrollment. They have consistently continued to increase steadily in enrollment. Dual enrollment took a seismic shift. You will see that there is one of the largest increases that we've had, a 43% increase in dual enrollment at our technical colleges across the state. They saw a 6% increase in new student registration since fall of 2021 and a 21% increase in returning and continuing students. Most of that we have to thank our legislators and our governor for putting in the money for the TCAT waitlist initiative. Our TCATs had been operating at capacity. We had an 11,000 student wait list. When they put that program in place, we've been able to reduce that wait list down to 7,000 students this year. We're continuing to work on adding new programs and adding new faculty into the system. So very proud of what's happening there. I'd also like to spend just a moment talking about some of our high-impact practices that we put in place that goes back to why we're keeping people enrolled in our system, why we feel like we're having a much better success rate. Our Veterans Initiative began over the 2022 year. We now have 6,126 students across the system that are categorized as veterans. All 13 of our community colleges are now considered our designated vets-friendly campuses. 2 technical colleges are, and we are working to make sure that all of our colleges earn that recognition over the next several years. What are we doing in industry to serve the workforce? Again, I'm extremely proud to tell you that we had a 25% increase this past year in our workforce training. We served over 2,000 companies, that's individual discrete companies in the state of Tennessee, for 1,027,159 contact hours across the state of Tennessee. That is also 250 apprenticeships that we put in place over this past year. And you remember before in past when I've talked to you about our warranty that we put in place, you'll recall that that is for any student that graduates from a technical program of study. If within 1 year of graduation, an employer says, I've hired this student, they do not have the skill set for which you say you've trained them, we will take them back and retrain them for free. To date, we've issued 46,209 warranties on our students, and we have had 0 claims. I'm very proud of that fact and proud of the work that our colleges are doing to meet the workforce and industry needs of the state. With regard to our high-impact practices specifically, we are one of the only systems in the nation right now that is being looked at and studied because we are collecting data on our high-impact practices as a system. We are working with several national organizations to do research on this to find out what is being successful, what are the best of our high-impact practices, and what do we need to be doing more. All of those high-impact practices, it includes our advising program, first-year seminars, honors education, learning communities, peer mentoring, service learning, student employment, undergraduate research, and work-based learning going on in our colleges. I'm also very proud to tell you that all of our colleges, 100% of both our community and technical colleges, have now joined a national initiative called Achieving the Dream. The basis of Achieving the Dream is very data-driven. You look at your data to see where you are not serving certain populations of your environment. We are using that data to assist in academic success and economic opportunity for all students across our system. It's also giving us some very detailed information on the largest group that we know we lost in the COVID era, and that was our Black males, dropped out at a higher rate than any other group across the state. So the data is helping us look at that, navigate what we need to be doing and helping us institute new black male success strategies that we can work on with our colleges. On equity and completion, we are also looking at our articulated pathways. This past year, we increased the number of articulated pathways that we had across the system. This is where when you take courses and programs of study at our technical colleges, we now have 30 of those pathways totally articulated to our community colleges, and we now have 79 programs of study articulated from our community colleges directly into our universities within the state of Tennessee. I'm also proud of the fact that you see the $6.6 million there. That is reflective of the money that our students have saved this past year due to the open access books that we have put in place across the system. Many of our faculty are no longer requiring students to purchase books in the bookstore, which we found was a barrier to success because of the high cost of books. We have been working with our faculty to use open access materials that are available online. Many of them are pulling those resources in and now using them to the tune of $6.6 billion our students have been able to save. We are the power of workforce in Tennessee. You can see on this map barely, but the red dots reflect where all of our community colleges are located. The blue dots are our technical colleges. We have the state covered. We go from Memphis to Mountain City, 178 teaching locations at this moment in time, with many more to come, which you're going to hear about from our strategic master plan for our TCATs later in the presentation or in your meeting today. But we are there. We are ready to serve. Again, I'll put the QR code up for you to go to our website to look at our strategic plan. We also have data dashboards located on our website, so if you've got some extra time and you want to look and dive deep into any of the data at our colleges, you can pull it up by college, you can pull it up by system, but we spend a lot of time looking at where we're being successful and where we're not, and then we work to improve that. Thank you, and that is all I have today. Are there any questions?
Yes, sir.
Chancellor, first of all, I wanted to sing praises of some of your folks around the state. State Board of Education, our members do days in the district, and most of them have involved either the TCAT president or the community college folks being there, as we have done our best to focus on post-secondary partnerships, especially those last several years of high school. I wanted to give a big shout out to Chris Whaley and the team over at Roane State. They've been pretty extraordinary. In the last 6 years or so, where we've been able to travel outside of Nashville and have our meetings, we've hit most of the state universities, but this was our first community college. And one of the reasons we did that is because I think a lot of folks in this state have watched their emphasis on completion from day one in terms of their middle college program. One thing to come out with 12 hours or a year's worth of college credit. It's something else entirely, that the expectation there is that those students come out with that post-secondary credential completed, and the team over there has been pretty extraordinary to make that happen. So I wanted to say that also to Dr. Yolanda Jones over in West Tennessee. Just extraordinary, the work that's going on with the TCATs over there. In preparing for Blue Oval City and the partnerships that have taken place with K-12, we did a day in the district in Dyersburg, and of course, Dyersburg State has a really useful relationship there, but also the TCATs were just doing some extraordinary work. I did want to ask, though, I noticed you mentioned the 79 transfer pathways. Can you tell me about any challenges the students are facing with those transfer pathways? I know that it's changed a little bit over time, but I just wanted to know if there was anything more on that you could share.
We hope that students aren't experiencing any challenges in those 79 pathways, because that's actually in statute, that those pathways are guaranteed to articulate. We did go back this last year, and Dr. Jothany Reed has been in charge of making sure that we are updating all of those pathways, because occasionally you will have faculty change and you will have some people say, well, this isn't exactly the way that we articulated that curriculum. She's done an excellent job of making sure that what you see in those 79 and what you see in those 30 from the TCAT are guaranteed to articulate. Now, if a college doesn't accept it, we are relying on that student to come tell us, otherwise we may not know that there's been an issue, but we will work with the universities to make sure, and our university partners are incredible. They are at the forefront of making that happen.
Other questions for Chancellor Tidings? Yes, ma'am. Mr. Coben.
This is such a wonderful report, and I think as the pandemic was coming to a close, we all suffered some pain with you over the decline in community college enrollment. I kept scratching my head saying, why is this happening? But this tells me we are on our way out of that, and I'm so glad to see what's going on at TBR and how well they're serving the state. I just want to compliment you and your staff and your schools.
Thank you so much.
Other questions? Yes, sir.
First of all, Roan State appreciates the shout out. So my question is, you're talking about we have a 7,000 person wait list for our TCATs. What is being done to further address that, and what other things does the state need to do to be able to help those people who are waiting to be able to get into the TCAT sooner?
We are still working the process from some of the money that was allocated to us last year. Buildings take time, but we are working those through. We've got, I think right now it is right around 70 projects that are in capital improvement to help toward that. We are hiring new faculty, so you'll see that number being whittled down over the next several years as we put the capital piece in place. The momentum and the change that we've been able to make right now is where many of our TCATs went in and they put in second shifts so that we could hire additional faculty. We received money to do that, so they hired faculty to come in, and we're using the labs to maximum capacity right now, but we're at a point where we have to put in new infrastructure to go any further, and that's what we're working on.
Thank you.
Other questions? Yes, ma'am. Commissioner Scarlett.
Thank you so much for sharing this with us, Chancellor Tidings. It's been an excellent brief. A couple questions specifically tied to the community colleges. The TCATs, I think, have stellar explosion of growth for obvious reasons and the great success. When you think about the community colleges and the, you mentioned some of the, I don't know whether you call it high impact programs, whatever the programs are from counseling standpoint, you have a lot of enrollment, and I'm thinking about the first time freshmen, but 26% graduation rate. A lot of enrollment coming in, hopefully more with the 65,000 Tennessee Promise applications, right? What more can be done to help support those students? And you mentioned a lot of college counseling programs, which equally is important. What more can be done to be able to make those strong connections to ensure students are actually able to step into high growth jobs when they graduate?
Yeah. One of the aspects that I didn't bring up today that we're working on as well is embedded certificates, so that when students do stop out, we hope they have something in hand that they could go to work, they could actually be employed, which is what happens to a number of these students. They might come and spend 6 months to a year with us and decide life gets in the way, I need to go take care of some other things, and then they return to us. So we have a large number that do return, they do come back. We also have a large number that come to us and they start with us maybe that first year, and then they transfer to the university. Well, that's not reflected here in that number as well. And that's another good point for Tennessee Promise, because they're using their Promise dollars with us in that first year to get their English, their math, their psychology, to transfer to a university setting. It's just not always good when you look at our numbers. It doesn't aptly explain what's happened to those students and where they've gone. The high impact practices that we have in place, they're making a difference in helping to capture those students. Career focus is a lot of the conversations that we have with them. What is your goal? Where do you want to go? And let's help you get that pathway designed early on in the process so that we can try to help you over any of those humps.
Yes, ma'am, absolutely.
You just made me think of another question. What sort of relationship do you or does your team have with the K-12 system? I know the TCATs are beginning to embed a lot more from a dual enrollment standpoint. I hear a little bit of community colleges. What sort of relationship are we looking at there?
Well, we were primarily, you're going to talk about the local level with our colleges and our TCATs. And it's the responsibility of those colleges to make sure that they know the superintendents, they're working with the principals at the schools to set up those pathways and those relationships. And that seems to be a better plan, is that it happens at the local level. That's where it makes a difference. And so having that relationship established with them, I think that's why you see this big increase in dual enrollment. That has been a collective push of our presidents over the last several years to make sure that they're having those conversations with the people in their region to be able to do that. And every community is a little different, so it's approached a little bit differently in every community.
Other questions? Chancellor Tidings, thank you so much for the report, and Dr. House, thank you for your report as well. Next item on our agenda is our consent calendar. We have 3 items on the consent calendar, and unless there are any questions or objections, the floor is open to entertain a motion to adopt the consent items of the consent calendar as a collective whole.
So moved.
Have a motion. Is there a second? Second. We have a second. Madam Secretary, please call the roll.
Chairman Coe,
Aye.
Commissioner Allman. Aye. Commissioner Kingsolver,
Aye.
Commissioner Coben. Aye. Commissioner Moser,
Aye.
Commissioner Scarlett,
Aye.
Commissioner Stafford,
Aye.
Commissioner Wharton,
Aye.
Commissioner Winton, Secretary Hargett, Treasurer Lillard.
Aye.
Chairman, you have 11 ayes.
Very good. The motion's carried and the consent calendar is adopted. We turn now to our regular calendar. Item number 1 on the regular calendar is a fall 2022 enrollment update. Excuse me, Amanda Clufane will make that presentation. Thanks, Amanda.
Good morning, everyone. Dr. House, Chairman Cope, members of the Commission. I'd first like to kick off this presentation with huge thanks, not only to my team in the audience, but also to our institutional research partners across the state, who were critical in providing real-time data for this presentation this morning. So what you see up on the slide is a quick overview of what our presentation will cover this morning. I'll recap where we were last November when I presented, as well as share a few updates on some key metrics that we're commonly talking about in higher education. I'll share an update on the fall 2022 14th day enrollment, looking at our undergraduate first-time freshmen data, as well as a comparison to fall 2019, that pre-pandemic touch point. And then I'll highlight some preliminary national trends and see where the Tennessee context is situated. So first, to recap where we were last fall, and some end-of-term outcomes. We maintained a notable drop-off in enrollment from fall 20 to fall 2021, similar to trends that were observed in the previous year. Overall, our colleges were down 4.5%, with some disparities across our sector, with our community colleges down at a larger rate, for example. First-time freshmen also remained down 2.1% over fall 2020, but that decline was not as steep as it had been in the prior year. I also have highlighted on this slide fall-to-fall retention rates. So as Chancellor Tidings was sharing before, this is a subset of students, our first-time, full-time freshmen, who remain enrolled in public higher education in the subsequent fall. As you can see on the slide, the retention rate overall dropped 2.2 percentage points when compared to the prior cohort, our largest drop occurring at our locally governed institutions over this period of time. We have this data as well as some other information about end-of-term outcomes in our annual fact book, and would definitely encourage those who are interested to check that out for more detail. I also wanted to share something from a recently released lottery scholarship report. So we produce a report each year that outlines the outcomes, participation for our Hope Scholarship students. So those are the students who also receive the Aspire grant or the General Assembly Merit Scholarship Supplement. This illustrates the way that enrollment and retention throughout these COVID years has been playing through our scholarship programs. And since fall 2019, the number of first-time freshmen receiving Hope and those supplements has dropped 13%. Similar to overall first-time freshmen, we also observed some retention declines for the the incoming group of fall 2020, resulting in approximately 2,500 fewer HOPE recipients remaining enrolled in higher education, regardless of scholarship eligibility. So I just wanted to highlight that I think we're beginning to see some of this playing through some of our financial aid programs. Again, we've got that report as well as some really exciting dashboards and data downloads available for our HOPE Scholarship, and I would encourage you to check those out. In addition to that context, I wanted to share a slide that I think everyone is at this point familiar with by now. This looks at the college-going rate by race over time. And so what you can see is declines in college-going across all student groups, but some disproportionate declines across, in particular, Black and Hispanic high school graduates. We can also see these declines by gender, with declines across both groups and our male high school graduates dropping below 50% directly or seamlessly enrolling in post-secondary. The cross-section of race and gender also illuminates some critical disparities in college going that preceded the pandemic but have been exacerbated over time. And so again, Emily mentioned this, or Dr. House mentioned this earlier, but we do have a college going rate report that highlights a lot of these details, as well as some data downloads there too. So now that we've recapped where we've been, I want to share a preliminary look at fall 2022. So this slide looks at overall undergraduate headcount from fall 2021 to fall 2022. Overall, undergraduate headcount in Tennessee is flat at 0.3% growth experienced overall. Our LGIs are up as a whole 1.3%, and the UT system is up 4.9%. This is also in the materials for the commission, but we also can see here several bright spots, with the Tennessee State University and University of Tennessee at Knoxville experiencing notable growth in their overall headcount, undergraduate headcount this year. And while we continue to observe some declines at our locally governed institutions and community colleges, these declines are smaller than they have been in prior years. So next, I want us to check out the incoming student pipeline, and this was talked about a little bit earlier as well. This slide depicts the first-time freshman enrollment from fall 2021 to fall 2022 across our Tennessee public colleges. Excitingly, overall, first-time freshman enrollment is up 8.9% as a whole, and this is driven in large part by our university sector, with large increases at our locally governed institutions as well as our University of Tennessee system. Tennessee State University, as you can see on the slide, is experiencing a substantive increase in first-time freshman enrollment this fall. We also have other universities experiencing a double-digit increase in first-time freshmen. So this is sort of the first time, I think, in a while that I've been able to share what have been some pretty exciting bright spots for first-time freshman enrollment. And so, as I mentioned before, wanting to highlight for everyone where we were in fall 2019 as we compare to fall 2022. And so what we can see is that overall headcount does remain down about 5.7%, with our largest declines at our community college sector. We also see that our locally governed institutions as a whole are down about 3%. Our University of Tennessee system is actually up over this period of time. I'm seeing there's a note missing. Importantly, this is not including UT Southern, but that UT system increase is driven exclusively by the University of Tennessee at Knoxville. And so while not every institution or sector has experienced consistent directional changes in enrollment over time, this is kind of allowing us to see that pre-pandemic to today picture. While we're seeing some signs of improvement, as I shared on the previous two slides, we do still see some of those declines over time. And so with that, again, Tennessee State and UT Knoxville bucking the trends overall, I wanted to share some national trends. And again, these are a preliminary look, very recently released data, a partial reporting to the National Student Clearinghouse. And so what you can see is that overall undergraduate enrollment remains down, with freshman enrollment down at four-year institutions. Graduate student enrollment is kind of being sliced through the middle there, but that is down slightly as well. And nationally, we're also observing differences in enrollment across student groups. Hispanic and Latino students, as well as multiracial students, are experiencing some growth, while other race groups are declining. We see female students continue to experience enrollment drops that are larger than their male peers, and that adult student enrollment continues to decline. And this is consistent with some trends that were shared last year as well. So, how does Tennessee look in that context? So again, this is the first time in recent history that we've really been able to report what is flat undergraduate enrollment year over year, which I think is a positive sign generally. We can see in some parts of Tennessee higher education that our colleges are bucking trends with overall undergraduate and first-time freshman enrollment up year to year. The increase in graduate student enrollment that was observed earlier in the pandemic has subsided some, and this is consistent with what we are seeing with the nation. But however, opportunities remain for some of our universities and our community colleges to rebound from what were sizable enrollment drops over time. And as you heard in Dr. House's comments earlier about the momentum year, as well as the exciting news on Tennessee Promise applications, there are many efforts underway to arrest that college-going rate decline that we're seeing, as well as discussions around how we re-engage our adult student population, among others. And so something, as I share always, we will continue to collect more data, but we will be collecting end-of-term enrollment data where we'll be able to share a little bit more of the demographic details for our public colleges into the spring. And so with that, I will ask if you guys have any questions.
Thanks, Amanda. Questions? Commissioner Coben?
Amanda, I wonder if we could ask President Glover if she could speak to the amazing progress that's been made at TSU. I've heard there's a real uptick in interest in HBCUs, but is it the Eddie George effect? Could you tell us, President Glover, what you think attributes those wonderful numbers to your campus?
May I, before she gets up here,
Absolutely.
as a Tennessee State University graduate, I will definitely echo it's HBCU. I would say it's an influx of things that influence this basic resurgence of students being willing or wanting to go to HBCUs. There's the Eddie George effect. There's also being in Nashville. There's also President Glover. There's also, you had the Vice President of the United States, along with President Glover, serving as the president, immediate past president of Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated, which is the very first sorority for Black women that was ever created in this country. So of course you're going to have a lot of efforts, but I mean, certainly, Dr. Glover, you can come speak for yourself, but as someone who is a graduate and definitely feels the pride and all the things that Dr. Glover has done and seeing how much she's worked to put in the efforts, but please come speak for yourself. But I just wanted to take that little moment before you make your little way up here.
We would love to hear from you, Dr. Glover.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the commission. Well, TSU did have its largest first-year enrollment in our history, and it's due to a number of things. One, aggressive marketing throughout the state. We partnered with community colleges. We just expanded the qualified application pool through, there's something called the Common Black College Application, where one student can just apply to at one time and get sent to all 106 HBCUs. And that really helped Tennessee State because we really became active in that application pool. And something internal, we fixed an internal application that helped us get more students processed quicker. At one time, we had a problem matching transcripts with the applications. It has to be done almost manually. Well, we fixed that internally. Instead of taking 5 minutes or so per application, it's a matter of seconds now. So that's one overriding factor. We just had more live events, et cetera, et cetera. But I can't understate the value of the HBCU renaissance that's happening now. You have Deion Sanders, Eddie George, and professional sports legends, icons, speaking up for HBCUs. Parents are sending students back to HBCUs. And we can't deny the facts nationwide. There are the competitors for Tennessee State University, Jackson State, North Carolina, FAMU, all have double-digit growth. Jackson State had 117% first-year growth. So the HBCU renaissance is coming back, and we're excited to be in this. We're happy for the growth. Yes, with growth comes challenges that we'll address next week and at the end of the month, but there are challenges with every type of growth that we have, and we're excited about it. We know we have to do to correct some of the deficiencies that we have, but, and so that's primarily it, and I thank you all for the opportunity to make these comments.
Thank you so much. While you're there, Dr. Glover, any questions? Yeah, Commissioner Scarlett?
Thank you so much, President Glover. You've amazingly done some amazing work with TSU, and some obviously amazing graduates you have, alumni. Two questions for you. One is, what is the average TSU year-over-year persistence for first-time freshmen? And you may or may not know it off the top of your head, and if you don't, that's fine. We can get it later.
Well, it has increased, but it's still around the close to the 7% range.
7-0?
We're hoping that we get it higher this year. We're putting in some retention methodologies that will cause students to come back at a much faster rate. I personally met with the entire freshman class last week, and I think the interaction more and the advising process has been upgraded. So it's not where we want it to be, but it is growing.
Okay. My second question is, you've had extreme growth, and you're talking about aggressive marketing and that common application for HBCUs and the processing of applications quicker. What can community colleges learn from TSU to increase enrollment and persistence?
I actually haven't studied that, but I think if we were to partner more with the four-year institutions, I think TSU is partnering with all the community colleges in the state, MOUs, and we're making more aggressive efforts to for the transition and make it smoother and cleaner, to reviewing the transcripts to make sure that the courses can be matched more properly so that students can have just an easier transition to the four-year institutions.
Other questions? Yes, sir.
So you mentioned that common application form. Obviously, a lot of those students who are filling out those forms are choosing TSU. About how many of those are you estimating are out of state, and why do you feel like they're picking TSU over the other 105 HBCUs that they can do?
Well, they're picking. We're happy they're picking TSU. They're also picking the others because there's double-digit growth in a lot of the HBCUs. I think the national presence of HBCUs, TSU being on a national stage, haven't been on it for the last year, a little over a year or so. We've been on it longer than that, but been in the public percent on MSNBC, being a guest, being present by the President of the United States to Vice Chair of the HBCU committee to do things that will help HBCUs, helping the legislators write the legislation to assist HBCUs. I think all the factors that put TSU on a national stage in a national agenda, I think all those have helped TSU. And I can't leave out our aristocrat of bands. Students just love watching them. They went to the parade, in the Rose Bowl parade, and the Grammy that we're applying for. So I think there's so many factors that have all come together for TSU. And actually, applications are up this year over this time last year. There are about 1,000 more students who've applied to TSU for this fall versus last year. Students on social media are talking about how much fun they're having. I mean, we have some other ugly stuff on social media, don't get me wrong. But students are, TSU and FAMU are the two schools that are just going neck and neck about what they're doing in their college experience. And that's making other students just want to come to these two schools. So TSU and FAMU and Jackson State are ones that are really out there.
Commissioner Allman?
One thing, I commend you for the growth. Actually, I circled that, 117% growth, so that's amazing. One question, I guess it's really a question, but maybe just asking for clarification. I may have misunderstood. In TBR's report, it seems like that enrollment is down amongst black males. Is that correct? Okay, that makes sense. Well, congrats. Good job.
Chancellor Titan's right that, not that all at TSU, it's right that the black males, that sector is down. It's down at TSU. I think it was like 60-40, because you can correct it here, and Dr. Johnson here with me. I think it's like 61% female this first year enrollment. So that we have to work on that sector of our population.
Other questions? Okay, great. Dr. Glover, thank you so much for entertaining our questions and that excellent report, and congratulations for everything that's happening at TSU. That's awesome.
Thank you.
All right. Next item on our agenda, that was an I'm sorry, Amanda, did you have anything else?
No, I'm all set.
Okay, any
Unless there are
questions
other
for Amanda
questions?
before? Thank you so much. That was a
Thank you.
great report. I'm sorry, did you have? Go for it. Okay. Moving on to item number 2 on our regular calendar. This is our first action item. It's our 2023-2024 operating state appropriation recommendation. Crystal Collins.
Good morning. I would just like to say I have seen the band, TSU's band, and it was the most amazing thing I've ever seen in my entire life. There was an entire back bin situation that we won't even get into this morning. Not from me, let me be clear, since this is a public meeting. It was not me. Good morning, Director House, Chairman Cope, members of the Commission. I'm pleased to join you this morning to present, along with my colleague, Mr. Russell Van Zomeren from my team and Mr. Paul Marshall from the facilities team, the 23-24 operating appropriation, tuition and fee, and capital recommendations. Today represents the next step in a many months-long process made possible by the important partnerships between THEC and the staff of our institutions and system offices, and I'd like to take a moment to publicly thank them for their assistance and hard work. We really could not provide these agenda items to you today without their partnerships. Before I begin discussing this particular agenda item, this appropriation recommendation, just a quick reminder to all that this agenda item and the next agenda item focusing on tuition and fee ranges are closely tied together. So while I won't be addressing the tuition and fee guiding ranges directly during this presentation, please know that these two agenda items will walk together hand in hand over the next several months through this process, the governor's budget, and through the legislative session. Beginning on page 6 of agenda item 2, TX staff are recommending $150 million increase in recurring funds for the universities, community colleges, and colleges of applied technology for the 2023-24 fiscal year. This recommendation recognizes the increased outcomes generated by our universities and community colleges, as well as increases in completions and general enrollment at our TCATs. This recommendation will also allow for the continued focus on affordability for Tennessee students by prioritizing, yet again, a modest tuition and fee increase in alignment with previous actions of this commission. As with previous requests, this recommendation does not explicitly identify a salary increase for higher education employees, but instead identifies an overall state appropriation level that would support a 0 to 3% tuition range, which again, Mr. Van Zomeren will discuss further in the next agenda item. Academic formula units reported a base state appropriation and tuition fee revenue of $3.3 billion in the current fiscal year. An increase of $150 million on this $3.3 billion equates to about a 4.5% increase overall in available revenue to these institutions. Of this $150 million, $103 million would be distributed to the universities, $37.6 million to our community colleges, and an additional $9.4 million to our colleges of applied technology. In addition to new funding for our formula units, TX staff are also recommending a $22.8 million operating increase for our specialized units, including $18.6 million for the medical colleges and family practice units located at UT and ETSU, $3.6 million for the agricultural research and public service units located at TSU and UT, an additional $605,000 for the University of Tennessee Southern. As a reminder, UT Southern remains outside of the outcomes formula at this time as it continues to work toward meeting the high standards for data collection and management to be included in the outcomes formula, but UT Southern is included in the binding tuition ranges that this commission will act on, and therefore its funding request today is set to the average increase for formula units. This 5.7% increase in recurring funding to specialized units reflects annual growth in fixed costs as well as several specialized cost drivers unique to these units, which we've discussed previously, including meeting the requirements of evolving medical procedures and technology at our medical colleges, and the cost of equipment, machinery, crops, and even livestock at our agricultural units. Today's recommended increase will continue to build on the $12.5 million investment by the state and general operating increases that have been made to our medical units in the last 2 years, and that represents the first time that those units have received general operating increases since 2016-17. The recommendation before you today also includes $2.3 million to fund strategic investments at several of these specialized units, including recurring funding to the TSU Institute of Agricultural and Environmental Research, funding for the ETSU Family Practice, and additional funding to the UT Institute for Public Service. Additionally, THEC staff are recommending $7.2 million recurring and $4.4 million non-recurring for statewide investments across all institutions controlled by the Board of Regents, resulting in a total strategic investment of $13.8 million to these units. I will discuss these initiatives in greater detail at the heel of this presentation. And then finally today, our recommendation includes a formal recommendation for $8.9 million in recurring and non-recurring funds for several specific agency-led initiatives, which were presented to you for comment and approval back in July. This process today will allow us to move that forward to the governor with our official recommendation. Moving to a discussion of performance in the outcomes formula, this slide identifies our top performers in the 23-24 funding formula. I'm happy to report that this year, 8 universities and 4 community colleges earned positive weighted outcome growth in the formula, meaning they produced more weighted outcomes this year than they did in last year's model. At our universities, the top performers for the second year in a row are Austin Peay State University and the University of Tennessee at Martin. Driving the improvements at Martin, the 3-year average graduation rate is up nearly 4 percentage points, and their master's degrees have nearly doubled from 109 in 2018-19 to 315 in 21-22. And Martin has indicated to us that that was a direct, purposeful movement towards increases in master's degrees by removing barriers to master's degree students who are attending Martin. At Austin Peay, bachelor's degree counts are up, and research and service and doctoral degrees are increasing. At the community colleges, repeat top performer Walters State is joined this year by Cleveland State at the top of their sector, with Cleveland State showing increases in awards, associate degrees up 6%, and less than 1-year certificates up 10%, and job placements up 7%, while Walters State is growing in certificates, dual enrollment, and workforce training. Additional information on the funding recommendations and percent increases for each of our colleges and universities and TCATs can be found on pages 6 and 7 of attachment 2 of your materials. Turning our attention to the overall outcomes primarily responsible for driving the funding changes at our formula units, this chart displays the change in the newest year of data compared to the, okay, I just want to make sure. I can't see anything. It's fine. We're all good. I can see this. I can't see that. This shows the newest year of data compared to the oldest year of data for the universities in this year's model. So our model operates on a 3-year moving average. So we compare our bottom 3-year average to our top 3-year average. If you compare 18-19, the oldest year of data, to the newest year of data, 21-22, you can see where those 3-year averages are moving. So while community colleges are still facing some lingering effects of the pandemic through enrollment and outcome challenges, universities have remained mostly insulated from these widespread COVID-related outcome impacts. When comparing 18-19 to 21-22, undergraduate degrees at the universities are up nearly 1%, and graduate degrees are up double digits. This is in alignment with what Ms. Clethane addressed earlier, where you're seeing increases in graduate enrollment while undergraduate enrollment is still sort of lagging, even at our universities. Additionally, the universities have increased the 6-year graduation rate by 2.5 percentage points in 21-22 compared to 18-19. Enrollment-sensitive outcomes continue to decline at community colleges. Specifically, our progression metrics are continuing to show significant declines across the entire community college sector, with these declines even more impactful due to the large increases from the implementation of Promise in 15, and with the outside recent enrollment declines discussed earlier by Amanda. However, we do anticipate that these declines are beginning to slow as the formula moves away from the peak performance years of the initial Tennessee Promise cohorts, again, that started to hit really in 18-19, 17-18, and 18-19. So this For instance, this 12 credit hours, 12 and 24 credit hours here in 1819, that's the peak that we've ever seen in progression metrics achieved by our community colleges. Early comparisons, if you were to see year-to-year comparisons of 2021 compared to 21-22, are already starting to show increases in those progression metrics, with a nearly 2% increase in 12 credit hours compared to the previous year. Community colleges did award more associate degrees in 21-22 than were awarded in 18-19. And additionally, these workforce training hours, which are a measure of trainings and outreach provided to local community and business partners, also continue to grow, showing a partnership with local businesses and communities. More information on this 3-year average changes can be found on pages 13 and 14 of your attachment, including focus population premiums. So now that we've discussed changes in outcomes, I wanted to briefly outline how these outcomes are driving the distribution of the operating appropriation recommendation before you today. So all funds for universities and community colleges are distributed based on share of total as informed by performance through the funding formula. Shares of outcomes funding is a zero-sum game, and I know we don't like to throw that term around, but here it's actually appropriate. You can only distribute 100% of funding. You can't distribute 105% because we only have, that much money to hand out. So as one institution's share increases, another institution's share must decrease. The key is to grow in the formula at a rate that exceeds the average. Just briefly, to determine each institution's share, the current year's formula is compared to the previous year's formula to determine growth for each institution. If growth for an individual institution outpaces the growth of all institutions, that institution's share gets bigger. If it does not, that institution's share gets smaller. These shares determine the distribution of all funding, as I said, including any previous year base funding. And it also is used to distribute any new money provided by the government. This means that an institution with a declining share of total will receive less base funding and receive less new money than they would have had their share of total not declined. So, due to the large amount of money distributed through the funding formula, even the slightest change in share results in an impactful change for our institution. So, as an example, this year, we will be distributing about $1.5 billion through the outcomes-based funding formula. And just using basic math, that means that about a tenth of a percent change is worth about $1.5 million to each institution. So that means that if your share of total declines by a tenth of a percent, that's $1.5 million that you're leaving on the table. Let's look at ETSU as an example of how this works. Based on ETSU's performance in the model this year, ETSU will receive 6.66% of the total funding available, or about $97 million of the $1.5 billion available. This equates to about $5.4 million more than they would have received had their share of total this year remained at their share at the same level as it was in 2016-17, when it was at 6.30%. Conversely, institutions with declining shares would receive less funding, again, with each tenth of a percent decline in share resulting in a $1.5 million decline in possible funding. Finally, I wanted to just briefly focus on overall share of total for the community colleges to provide some additional context to the outcome slide presented earlier. I know we continue to talk about declines there that are starting to arrest, for sure. But while these community colleges have declined in recent years, again, showing a share of total down from about 27.62% in the 21-22 formula, which was about the height of promise, to 26.76% in this year's formula, the overall share for this sector remains about equal to where they were before Tennessee Promise began to flow through the system. Now, Dr. Tidings did talk about this a little bit related to Promise and Reconnect, and so this is a slide that we normally present here to discuss the effects of those particular financial aid innovations on the outcomes formula. So what we're going to look at is the effects of Promise and Reconnect students on the outcomes in the community college sector this year. Of all progression metrics generated in the most recent year of data, again, that's 21-22, 44% of them were generated by Promise students, and an additional 9% were generated by Tennessee Reconnect students. And what this means, basic math, is that over half of our progression metrics awarded in the funding formula were due to students participating in those two programs. Nearly 1/4 of all certificates were also awarded to Promise students, with an additional nearly 1/5 to our Reconnect students. But the real success story remains how those students are completing associate degrees. So of all associate degrees awarded in 21-22, I believe over 11,000 associate degrees, 42% were awarded to Tennessee Promise students, with an additional 21% awarded to Reconnect students. And this means that over 60% of all awards, associate degrees awarded at community colleges this year, were awarded to students who at some point touched those programs. Finally, as I promised at the beginning, I wanted to return to some additional funding requests for our strategic initiatives and our statewide system priorities, again totaling $13.8 million. First, THEC staff are recommending $2.3 million recurring to fund impactful program initiatives at several of our specialized units, including $1 million recurring to the TSU Institute of Agricultural and Environmental Research to ensure full funding for that unit and allow that unit to meet the one-to-one requirements for their federal match. $275,000 to ETSU's family practice to further increase access to mental and behavioral health professionals through their in Northeast Tennessee by integrating those mental health professionals into healthcare practices and providing additional training opportunities to students and mental health graduate programs. And $994,000 to the UT Institute for Public Service to further leverage the existing relationship between the 6 agencies housed at IPS and local communities to address the effects of substance misuse and opioid abuse across Tennessee, focusing specifically on our more rural areas. Staff are also recommending $11.6 million in statewide system priorities for the Tennessee Board of Regents. This funding will support interventions aligned with recommendations from the 2022 Education Recovery and Innovation Commission's report, including the creation of a statewide student support network to allow community colleges and TCATs to better meet students' basic needs and increase access to mental health services for those students, modernization of the learning experience to address the student success mission in light of recent changes wrought by the pandemic and subsequent enrollment changes at those colleges, and additional investment to address remaining safety and security concerns across all TBR campuses. Additional information about these strategic initiatives and statewide system priorities are located on page 9 of your attachment 2. And then again, formally requesting the $8.9 million to fund several high-priority agency-led strategic initiatives approved by you at the July 2022 meeting, including additional funding to expand the Advise Tennessee Advisor Corps and additional funding to increase Navigate Reconnect. For a reminder of those agency-led initiatives, they can be found on page 8. So, in summary, the recommendation before you today accounts for a total operating appropriation request of $2.24 billion. Again, at the core of this request is $150 million to fund outcome growth at community colleges and universities, while also centering affordability for our students with a 0 to 3% tuition range. And we're also asking that you provide a state investment of $22.8 million to fund operating increases at our specialized units, $13.8 million to fund those 3 strategic initiatives and 3 statewide system priorities, and $8.9 million for our 5 high-priority agency-led strategic initiatives for the 23-24 year. This accounts for a $195.5 million increase over last year's funding, which is equivalent to a 9.6% overall increase. We recommend approval of all items outlined in this agenda item, and Mr. Chairman, I am happy to answer any questions that the Commission may have.
Thank you, Crystal. Questions? Mr. Scarlett?
I have several questions and a comment. One question has to do with UT Southern. What's their ETA on completing everything that's needed from a data perspective to be put into the regular formula process?
Yes, ma'am, thank you. So the original deadline, or I guess timeline we addressed, was 4 to 5 years after they were acquired. They were acquired in 21, so we're shooting for the 25-26 funding formula year.
Okay, thank you. So my next is it's going to be a combination of a comment/question. If our ultimate goal is to help students be able to complete some sort of post-secondary credential and get into some sort of job, regardless of what career pathway that might be, they might start their own business, they might get into a high-growth opportunity, whatever the case might be. And we're funding a very large amount of funds here to support the traditional operating funding mechanism. There's such a big need with what's happened over the past couple of years with COVID, among other things, for the individual student supports. Simultaneously, on the business side, at a national level, I'm sure you've all heard this in the news, there's, 2 jobs for every 1 person, right? And we think about Tennessee and what's really needed in our local communities. I think it's really important for the state to fund the advising programs, the bridge programs, the student support network, modernizing of community colleges and TCATs. I mean, our TCATs are rocking it, right? Community colleges, I think the modernization of a community college needs to happen at a variety of levels. And I also would ask the question, since I kind of rambled a little bit, what can other community colleges learn from Cleveland State and Walter State if we know that the least amount of growth is happening in those spaces? What can be learned across that network? A lot of the advising, the bridge programs, the student support network, and the modernizing of the learning experience would happen at the TCATs and also at the community colleges. I just impress the importance beyond that is if we really want to fill the jobs of today and tomorrow, we've got to be able to help these kids, students of all ages, be able to understand what it means to get into those jobs.
Yeah, I think that's a great point, Commissioner Scarlett. I will say that the materials that I've read from TBR related to this modernization specifically is looking at growing the best and brightest ideas that come out of that process and distributing it to all campuses to make sure that that is not being just held in, say, maybe where these successes are happening, that it's being pushed out into all community college campuses and all TCATs. And so I think it'll be a fruitful process over the next couple years to do that. Yes, ma'am.
Other questions? Yes, sir.
So I know several times in multiple of the presentations we've had today, COVID gets brought up as kind of the big bad wolf when it comes to everything of why this is down, why this is down. Is there any other reason or any other justifications for the reduction in enrollment at community colleges, and what can be done to reverse that?
Thank you. So actually, I think Commissioner Scarlett mentioned this in hers, the 2 jobs for every 1 person. I think the economy is booming in a way that is really affecting students and ability for students to enroll. Generally, when in the past, when there's been a recession, we would see, or a disruption like what happened with COVID, we would have seen a large increase in enrollment. That's what happened in 2008. That's what happened in 2004. We didn't actually see that this time, and I think it's been very unique what our institutions have had to deal with, all of our institutions, not just the community colleges, as far as how difficult it is to find students to enroll. We're also seeing a reduction, the fruits of a reduction in birth rates from about 18 years ago. So there are just, in general, fewer students to enroll. But I was talking to a CFO this morning who will remain nameless, who said there are still students out there to educate. And so it's just a matter of being more specific and letting them know why a credential is good for them and how it will help them in the job market, and that there are opportunities that don't take 4 to 6 years necessarily, if that's something that they're looking for. So I think it's a great question, and one that I foresee us struggling with through our master plan and strategic planning process over the next couple years.
Any questions? Yes, sir.
Thank you for including, and thank you all for the work you've done to include the recommendation of the Education Recovery Innovation Commission. It's nice to see Commissioner Scarlett, who was our chairman for that endeavor, and to see that it's being followed up on at the higher ed level. I will tell you, conversations were continuous even through the rulemaking process around TESA on the K-12 side to try to push towards partnerships and to do our best at least to make sure that where you have the state on the one hand saying, okay, create these partnerships, and on the other hand saying, you know, here's the K-12 funding formula, to try to get those things merged as much as possible was done there. It's very refreshing and gratifying to me to see the follow-through on this side. And so, and thank you, Mr. Chairman, by the way, for your team who were so helpful in that endeavor. Thank you.
Thank you for the comments. Other questions? Secretary Lillard. Treasurer Lillard, sorry. Oh, did you not have anything? Okay. Any other questions? Okay, Crystal, thanks so much. So we have to take an action on this item, and the floor is now open. I'm happy to entertain a motion to approve the operating state appropriation recommendations as presented.
Mr. Chairman, I would like to move that we adopt this recommendation. I know it is a whole lot of money, but I think that staff has clearly indicated and supported their arguments in favor of this ask, and I wholeheartedly support their recommendation. I move to accept.
Thank you, Commissioner Coben. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second from Mayor Wharton. Any discussion on this item? Okay, hearing none, Madam Secretary, please call the roll.
Chairman Cope,
Aye.
Commissioner Ullman. Aye. Commissioner Kingsolver,
Aye.
Commissioner Coben. Aye. Commissioner Moser,
Aye.
Commissioner Scarlett. Aye. Commissioner Stafford,
Aye.
Commissioner Wharton,
Aye.
Commissioner Winton. Secretary Hargett. Treasurer Lillard.
Aye.
Chairman, you have 11 ayes.
Very good. The motion carries and the appropriation recommendation is adopted. Next, item number 3 is our 2023-24 guiding tuition and fees range recommendation. Mr. Russell Van Zomeren. Floor is yours.
Thank you, Chairman Cope. You all already know how this ends. Crystal actually mentioned it, 0 to 3%. We'll talk a little bit about how we got there. As a reminder, agenda item number 3 is the guiding range on mandatory fees, as well as the combined mandatory and maintenance fees, guiding range on maintenance fees and combined mandatory and maintenance fees. This guiding range is meant to inform the state and our institutions where we intend to head should the appropriations request be met. Our goal at THEC, of course, is to make Tennessee higher education the most affordable it can be for our students, particularly in the Southeast. It's a plan we explicitly lay out in our strategic financial plan, and what we know is that since this body gained binding tuition authority, as you can see there on the dotted black line, we've seen the lowest yearly growth in tuition that our state has seen since we began tracking tuition in the 70s. Importantly, these low tuition increases have been matched by increased appropriations. And over time, the effect of this strategy has been a slow but deliberate shift back to the funding model we saw pre-2008, where the state and students shared the cost of higher education roughly equally. We actually have that here, looking at the total student support per award going back about 20 years. And there's two important things that we can see on this chart. These data are, of course, inflation adjusted over time so that we can make some comparisons. The first is that student support per award has been relatively constant over time, though there have been some slight declines in the post-2008 era. What that tells us is that institutions have become more efficient at producing awards now than they were, say, 10 or 20 years ago. The second thing of note on this chart is looking at the division of funding between state appropriations and tuition revenue. On the bottom, in red, you can see state appropriations. On the top, in that dark blue, you can see tuition revenue. And what we can see is, looking back to the early 2000s, again, something like a 50-50 split. Moving on to 2014-15, that division is now at 70-30, 70% coming from tuition revenue, 30% coming from state appropriations. Since 2014-15, with the help of this commission and the appropriations process, what we've seen again is that slow, deliberate movement back towards the pre-2008 funding levels. Continuing that trend will be more difficult this year. I had desperately hoped that I would not be talking about inflation again this year. Sadly, here we are. When we came to you this time last year, inflation stood at about 5.2%. That's for the full CPI. The core CPI that we use in the formula is at about 4%. Since then, inflation pressures have only increased. When we pulled these data last month, they stood at 8.2 and 6.3% respectively. These inflationary data represent 4-decade highs, higher than many in this room have seen in their adult lives. What we know from recent surveys that we've collected from our institutions is that just like any Tennessee family, they are working to find cost containment measures to keep up with the effects of inflation. And we surveyed our institutions to ask them, what does that actually look like? We've heard from institutions who have reduced their operating budgets, some looking to cut 3 to 4%, others looking to go as high as 15%. We've seen that institutions are limiting, or in some cases, outright removing travel expenses, or shutting down shutting down buildings to save on utility costs. And finally, we know that some of our institutions are looking at staffing options to cut costs, refilling what would normally be tenure track positions on their campuses with cheaper temporary contracts or adjunct faculty. There are these and many other examples that we've heard from our institutions on measures they're taking to contain their costs. However, even with efforts to reduce those costs, where possible, the realities of 4-decade high inflation persist for our campuses, again, just as they do for Tennessee families and for everyone in this room. One of our CFOs put it best in the response to the survey, saying, "The overarching impact of inflation is that purchasing power is being reduced in every area of the campus, from personnel to contracted services, and even the competition for students." As we discussed during our summer work session, our tuition model is driven by a variety of factors, but of course one of the key ones is inflation, and offering institutions the opportunity to maintain inflation-adjusted revenue year over year. A quick exercise, we had about $1.4 billion in state appropriations for our formula units last year, and about $1.9 in tuition revenue. That accounts for $3.3 billion in total revenue for formula units. Again, when we pulled the inflation data last month, that core CPI, so just looking at a CPI minus fuel and utilities, 6.3%. So in order to maintain revenue, inflation adjusted year over year, our institutions needed about $200 million into the coming year. And we split that, of course, between the appropriations request and our tuition request. The appropriations request, as you heard from Ms. Collins, is $150 million in recurring funding, leaving about $50 million that we estimate our institutions will still need from tuition revenue. That $50 million would align with about a 0 to 3% tuition range. This time last year, we recommended a 0 to 3% range tied to a $90 million appropriation request. At the time, core CPI was 4%. We revised that range in May after the administration passed $137 million in new recurring appropriations. This year, in considering our $150 million appropriation request, THEC staff are recommending a 0 to 3% guiding range on tuition and combined tuition and mandatory fees. And finally, here you can see the average fees for each sector and the corresponding fee required at 0, 1.5, and 3% increases. With that, I'm happy to answer any questions.
Questions for Russell? Commissioner Scarlett?
You may or may not have this information, but do we have any information from the early 80s, late 70s, when the last time we had a pretty large inflation spike, tied to enrollment and or completion, and any sort of tuition changes that might have happened during that period of time?
I don't have that information in my notes, but we could definitely get it for you.
So anybody who remembers the old Parkway Towers office in the THEC library, we will have that information. So I got one laugh, thank you. We do have that information in like hard copy, and we can look through that and see what we have. No? All right. Russ remembers that library.
Other questions? Commissioner Winton?
I just have a comment. I think, you know, you all have heard us talk about tuition increases and how we feel about it. And certainly, it's a conundrum, I feel like, for all of the universities to think through. How do you go to the legislature and continue to ask for funding and then also think about your tuition increases and have to come to us and get those approval? So I am interested and looking forward to hearing all of the ways that you will come back to us with your very smart and very strategic thoughts of engaging with the legislature and also engaging with us in terms of, because all of the students are feeling the effects of inflation too. So just wanted to put that out there.
Thanks, Commissioner Winton. Other question? Yes, sir.
So we saw that one graph where we've seen a increase in the students having to bear the brunt of the funding. With this new increase in funding that we just talked about, how much of that percentage is that going to be the state funding the education? How much are the students going to have to brunt?
That's a great question. I, like Crystal, cannot see the graph over there. I think it's about 40-60. If we were to approve this, receive the funding through appropriations, and then also receive $50 million in new tuition, that shift would be about 40 to 58, I guess it would be.
So we'd see an increase in the state paying to it then?
Yes, we would continue what we've seen over the last 7 or so years with that shift back towards the 50-50 split.
Because I'm kind of conflicted because I'm obviously the student regent, which means, you know, that means I don't want to be voting for me having to pay more money. But I did have a conversation with the faculty advisor of the Dyersburg Student Government Association at a meeting I had this past Friday, and they were talking about their issues. They're needing more funding for their student government. So I understand that there's needs on both sides, but like I've had to spend a lot of money on vehicle maintenance. I had to spend $200 to get my transmission fluid flushed. I had to spend $15 yesterday to patch a tire. You know, that is a small increase, but you know, it costs, it means real things in cost. It's not just dollars. It's whether or not I can buy books or other objects as well.
That's exactly right.
Thank you. Thanks. Other questions, comments? All right, great. Russell, thanks so much. So we have a proposal on the floor for the guiding tuition and fee ranges, and the floor is open.
Can I just
We do, yes, that's right.
just
We
make
need a motion.
comment before we go on to the
Absolutely,
motion?
sure.
I remain challenged with the 0 to 3. I think is a good range. I'll just be clear on that. And I recognize that it's the added revenue that comes in to support the schools. The inflation is going to be the inflation. It's going to happen at the schools level. It's going to happen at all individuals level. Even with the Fed changes at the rates, you know, we probably will not see this in the next, you know, coming months or year. It'll take a while for it to have an effect in our regular consumer community and student community. I'm also cognizant of looking at results, and I think that that is something that if you look by school, what are the outcomes we're seeing by school? And in some cases, as we move down this pathway and make this decision, we'll be funding some schools. Sorry, I've just now seen the spider. There's a spider up here. But in some cases, the outcomes are not where they need to be. And I think that I don't know whether we have an opportunity to call for improvement conversations when we look across the different schools or school types. That remains a challenge for me. Just wanted to share that with you all.
Thank you, Commissioner Scarlett. So the floor is open to entertain a motion. Be clear about that.
So moved.
Okay, we have a motion to approve the guiding tuition and fee range recommendation. Is there a second? Second. Thank you. Any further conversation, communication about this? Hearing none, Madam Secretary, would you please call the roll?
Chairman Cope,
Aye.
Commissioner Allman. Aye. Commissioner Kingsolver,
Aye.
Commissioner Coben. Aye. Commissioner Moser,
Aye.
Commissioner Scarlett,
Aye.
Commissioner Stafford,
Aye.
Commissioner Wharton,
Aye.
Commissioner Winton, Secretary Hargett, Treasurer Lillard.
Aye.
Chairman, you have 11 ayes.
Very good. The motion carried and the binding tuition range is adopted. guiding tuition range. I'm sorry, I said binding, I meant guiding. Be clear about that. Okay, next item is item number 4, 2023-24 capital project recommendations. Mr. Paul Marshall.
Good morning, Chairman Cope, Director House, members of the Commission. As Crystal pointed out, I'll be presenting the capital budget for your approval for fiscal year 23-24. The total capital outlay requested this year is $551.3 million in state appropriations. This year, THEC is requesting 11 outlay projects, which include 6 new construction, 3 renovation, and 2 mix of new and renovation. TSU has opted not to submit an outlay project due to the fact that they had the consideration of this year's special initiative and outlay funding of $300 million. THEC does continue to encourage campuses to consider major renovations and demolitions as a part of their project scope in order to improve space efficiencies. If the total demolition area that we're recommending is subtracted from the total new proposed area, the actual new outlay projects represent a net area addition of 250,000 square feet, but there is a 400,000 square feet of renovation included, so it's actually tipped toward renovation. 9 of the projects are new submittals that were scored and ranked in priority order. 2 are active outlay projects that are actually submitting requests for additional funding due to construction cost inflation, and I'll address that. All the outlay projects that were submitted are recommended. The 9 new outlay project proposals were read and scored by 9 evaluators, and they are prioritized according to their median scores. And I'll quickly go through the outlay submittal process. I know we have a lot to cover here. The capital project submission process follows the same basic process every year. Once the instructions are issued, THEC reaches out to all of the institutions to offer training both online and in person to ensure that each system, campus, SPA is fully up to date on the instructions, as well as what has historically sort of proven to be successful submissions. Projects are evaluated by a blind review panel of raters every year, and the list of projects resets every year, and projects do not carry over as was recommended by the institutions. To ensure that the projects, this is sort of to ensure that the projects submitted align with the most current institutional mission, goals, the campus needs, and the state initiatives. Once a submission is received by THEC, it's at the cutoff time, that's it. It can't be edited or changed, and the submissions are reviewed on what is submitted. It's expected that these submissions have already been through a number of reviews at the campus and leadership level. The review categories are the same as in the past years, and these are the 4: the Drive to 55 and the strategic plan, the consistency of the project with the institution's master plan, the thoroughness of the project development scope, project cost, understanding of the project's impact on campus, and of course the space needs of campus. And this year, as last year, the match component was a pass or fail. So the top priority recommendation this year is ETSU's Brown Hall Renovation South, which is a phase 2 of a 2-phase project. The first phase was funded in the budget cycle and approved by the State Building Commission this past July. This phase request is for $44 million, which will address the 1942 era south wing of the building and will update laboratory and institutional spaces for physics and astronomy and provide combined research and teaching spaces for biology, chemistry, and physics. The number 2 outlay project this year is for UT Chattanooga for the Fletcher Hall addition and renovation, and this project will construct an addition to Fletcher Hall that will house instructional spaces, outreach centers, community spaces, and shared resources for the Rollins College of Business. This project is made possible by a $30 million gift to the college. The number 3 project is Tennessee Tech's new academic building, and this will address campus-wide space shortages for classrooms and office space, and it will serve the College of Education and Arts and Sciences. The project removes, by demolition, 85,500 square feet of 3 adjacent buildings, and it adds 91,000 square feet on the same site. The number 4 project is the University of Memphis Research Modernization Project, and this will make significant improvements in over 15 labs in different buildings shown on light blue in this slide. These improvements will support high-level research that's commensurate with the Memphis recent Carnegie designation as an R1 research institution, and it's a continuation of a strategic plan to enhance research throughout the campus. They really must continue this to meet their important benchmarks in targeted research. The number 5 is the University of Tennessee Knoxville Chemistry Building. This project supports students in chemistry programs as well as in disciplines across the natural and health sciences and engineering. Tennessee actually ranks number 1 in chemical manufacturing in the Southeast and number 5 in the nation. So therefore, there's a strong demand for graduates in a variety of careers such as chemical manufacturing, industrial hygiene, service, and research institutions such as Oak Ridge National Lab. This project removes 104,500 square feet and only adds 163,000 square feet. The number 6 project is the University of Tennessee Health Science Gross Anatomy Lab renovation. The existing lab functions in 2 separate spaces right now, in the basement of Wittenberg and then a link building, and this project will relocate and consolidate the lab to the 3rd floor of the general education building and will aid in recruiting and training students to all 6 colleges. The number 7 project is the Jackson State Community College Regional Workforce Training Center. The project is envisioned to meet the specific training and educational needs of the West Tennessee business and industry community, and obviously in consideration of Ford's Louisville City project. This project will help address the Jackson State 14-county service area. The building will house high-bay multifunctional industrial spaces as well as traditional educational classrooms. Number 8 is the TCAT Paris Henry County Higher Education Center. This project will construct new facilities and for existing and additional programs on a new 20-acre campus that has been donated by Henry County Industrial Board. The current facility had a lease that was for 50 years, and that lease is expired. And finally, number 9 is the TCAT Elizabethton Carter County Higher Education Center. The Carter County Commission will donate property and facilities to establish a new TCAT Elizabethton campus. Northeast State classes as well as Elizabethton High School students will all attend this. The project aims to reduce the number of students on the wait list for TCAT Elizabethton, and the TCAT programs will be part of the middle college model, enabling high school students to graduate with both a high school diploma and a TCAT diploma. In addition to the 9 new outlay projects, THEC is recommending 2 projects for additional funding from the previous fiscal year of 21-22 due to the past year's extraordinary escalation of construction cost. Austin P is requesting an additional $32 million for the Health Professions Building, and MTSU is requesting $19.9 million for their Applied Engineering Building. These requests were submitted in lieu of a proposed new project, and both projects were originally planned in 2019, and they completed their estimates in the spring of 2020 prior to our current inflation levels. These were approved for capital outlay funding in fiscal year 21-22, and they started design last fall. Both have contracted with a construction manager general contractor for pre-construction services during design, and have based this funding request on the design of the building as well as on the designers and the contractors' estimates. If the projects were funded, if funded, the projects will be able to proceed with the original submitted full scope without delay. However, if the requested additional funds are not approved for Austin P's project, the project can still proceed with the elimination of the north-south wing and a clinic and consider that scope as a future phase. Likewise, if the additional funding is not approved for the MTSU Applied Engineering Building, the project will still be able to proceed on schedule, but will basically construct an empty envelope. They'll shell out the building for the east wing and the 3rd floor of the building as well, and they'll also eliminate the demolition of the Voorhees Industrial Studies Building. So the question that we continue to hear is, whether there will be more projects of all types that may need additional funds due to this dramatic cost escalation that we're seeing in the construction industry. Inflation just in the past 12 months has exceeded 20% over the past year, and it really doesn't appear to be diminishing at this time. However, there are some contractors that do predict seeing a leveling of cost at the end of this year. So it's very possible that we will see additional requests for funding. However, projects that are funded in 2022 that are now starting design won't have final estimates ready until 2023 or potentially afterwards. In summary, the total request for outlay is $551.3 million. In addition to that, we have an outlay request for demolitions of $5.9 million, and it's over 212,000 square feet for ETSU, University of Memphis, and UT. These are projects that are not related to an outlay project, and demolition is not eligible for capital maintenance funding. Campuses are always encouraged to consider planned demolitions as part of their projects at the end of a useful life of a building in order to avoid potential hazards and also, the problems that come with vacant buildings. It's important to note that these demolitions would eliminate $820,000 per year in operations and maintenance costs. The capital maintenance proposal is for 128 projects for a total cost of $238.4 million. And this year, all TCAP projects in your materials are listed separately to emphasize the need for TCAP maintenance. And the list includes also all TCAP maintenance out-year projects as well. In addition, there is also an additional maintenance request for $106.5 million to continue facility improvements for ADA program accessibility. If funded, most major ADA facility projects should be completed across all campuses. The last capital funding allocation for higher education ADA improvements was in 2019, and it was $3.5 million. The majority of existing higher education buildings, which is roughly 67% of them, were constructed prior to 1990 when ADA was enacted, and that's really a significant cause of why we have this ongoing need for ADA improvements. Finally, we do have a capital maintenance recommendation for safety and security that includes allocations for all campuses totaling $25 million. This is based on the fiscal year 21-22 effort by the Tennessee Department of Safety and Homeland Security and the security assessments that they conducted on all of our campuses. The funding request is intended to take advantage of advances in security technology, facility design technology, interoperability of state functions. The project will address critical issues identified by Homeland Security, and although we expect that this funding will make a significant improvement, we expect that it may not complete any ongoing capital needs for security on the campuses. The disclosure projects are projects that are funded by all other sources other than state appropriation funding, such as plant funds, auxiliary funding, gifts, gift in place, grants, TSSBA bond funding, and any other sources that the campuses may have. There is a request of $985.7 million for the disclosure of 40 revenue-funded capital projects, including 12 projects requesting the use of TSSBA bond funds in the amount of $521.3 million. The fiscal year 23 capital budget is presented for your consideration and approval. Glad to take any questions.
Thanks, Mr. Marshall. Questions? Yes, sir. Mayor Wharton.
Technical, but this is a lot of money here. How does the flow of funds really work? When we vote here today, does a check go off to the institution? What I'm looking for is there always delays in anything of this scope, and I'd just like to know the mechanics. Is this money really spent during the year if it is not reported? Who has control of it? I'd just like to...
I'd be happy to answer from my perspective what I know of what happens, and anyone else in the room that wants to comment on this. We'll put this forward. This will go into the governor's budget. Assuming the governor approves it, it then goes forward in July. The campuses get it. It is then allocated to them. They can then begin to move into design. So it will begin a process, but the entirety of their funding will not be spent immediately in July of 23, for example. They would roll into design. They'll have that amount of design time. Once the design is completed and they've brought on a construction manager or a general contractor, if they choose to go in that way, they'll come on board. Bids will occur approximately 1 calendar year later. So that's why when they do put the estimate, and I should have noted this, when any of these projects come forward and the budgets that are here that are being requested, every one of them does have the appropriate amount of escalation projected to their bid date to try and avoid any kind of escalation or coming back for more and more ask of funds. So what they're asking now is, if you can almost project into the future, when they bid it in 2024, right, in summer of 2024, that's projected to be what the appropriate cost would be. That's not directly answering your question as to how the funds are spent.
It comes close. You mentioned, what caught my attention, you mentioned something about the design phase of it, which, as you know, sometimes it's a fairly protracted process.
Absolutely.
And we never know what the cost is going to be until the design is completed.
Certainly.
But we do have processes to make sure that there are no idle funds on one project that could be used on another project if there's some centralized control. I want to make sure that the money's being spent where it is most needed at the time it is most needed?
I would need to go back and do some research and get that answer to you, unless the treasurer wants to speak to it.
Yeah, if I could comment, Mayor, you know, at the state level, and of course there's interplay there between the state and the institutions involved who are the project institutions that build these buildings and all that, but they have to go, of course, to the State Building Commission to get approval, and through this, you know, if there's school bond authority money involved or there's other sources of funding involved, gift funding, et cetera, there are other processes and approvals that occur, but to the extent that there are state funds involved, those funds remain with the Treasurer's Office, and they're invested in the State Pool Investment Fund, basically our money market account for state government, and on a short-term basis, and they continue to be in that status until they're dispersed either through the comptroller's office through a pay request with respect to a contractor, or to the institution involved who's going to handle the disbursement of the funds, depending on how the project is structured from a financial standpoint. But to assure you, all the money is invested at all times. And as you know, Mayor, you know, having been in government many years yourself, these projects take a number of years sometimes. It's not going to be approved and dealt with in the next 12 months. It's going to take an elongated period of time, particularly in today's challenging environment with supply chain and other issues that occur. So that's how it works.
Thank you.
That's great. Thanks. Commissioner Allman.
Really just a comment, not a question. But you mentioned the school board earlier, I guess, and I have the pleasure of serving on Dyersburg City School, on the school board there. And a lot of times, most recently we've been working a lot with our community college, our TCAP programs, and implementing courses there for dual enrollment, as many school systems have. Blue Oval City has been mentioned numerous times today. And one thing that at first I was a little saddened by, but I'm just tickled to see these 3 projects on the list. But projects 7, 8, and 9 are all recommended by TBR, and I was a little saddened to see those as low as they are, with our focus and our emphasis being so much on career and technical education. But I am pleased to see those there, and thank you for all the efforts to get those pushed through.
Absolutely.
Other questions? Yes, sir, Mr. Secretary.
Just real quickly, and you probably said this, and I've looked through here and I just couldn't find it. So there are 9 projects, new projects, that you're recommending to increase in funding as a result of cost increases.
For a total of 11, yes, sir.
How many were submitted to THEC for consideration?
Those are the ones, all the projects that were submitted to us are the 11 that we are recommending.
Okay, so there's nothing that was submitted by anybody, any institution out there that THEC looked at? And
Not that came to THEC, no, sir. We are recommending all projects we receive.
Thank you.
Thanks. Other questions, comments? Oh, yep, Treasurer Lillard.
Yes, sir. I just wanted to comment briefly on the recommended list and the process, if you will, a little bit. And what I'm going to say is it's important to note that I'm blessed by the Lord to have 3 college degrees, all from public universities, and I'm proud of that fact. But the issue here, to some degree, is what is the level of the facilities that we have available in key areas, our workforce development infrastructure. And this last year, Dr. House and the staff asked that some of the commissioners go out and meet with people at the Tennessee College of Applied Technology, and we talked about this a little bit earlier, workforce and all that. We went to TCAT McMinnville and TCAT Crossville and met with various people there at those institutions, including an instructor in the classroom in mechatronics and other related areas and all. And he introduced us to 3 of his students that he had there that were about to graduate in their early 20s, and they were going to make a very substantial salary. He said they have 100% hire rate out of their project, basically, or their class there for all of this type of training and everything. These particular students were going to Barrett Arms Company and began work with them. So he said they had indicated they could hire all that they would have available. And so that's a great thing for us. The bad thing that we observed out there is that the buildings that they're in were built on the cheap and obviously very quickly built in 1965 or so. and they are absolutely crammed into this space. Machines, they're using metal lathes and other things like that. And he pointed out that they could probably train double the number of students if they had the space and the equipment in order to do it. So, but that is background. And also I'll point out that a lot of our TCAT facilities across the state that I have seen are of a similar age vintage, unfortunately, and they were similarly built pretty efficiently or economically back in the 1960s, and that's limiting what we can do today. Fast forward to today's process and this recommendation here and its relevance to this is Dr. House and the staff asked for the first time that the constitutional officers each supply staff members to help score these projects when they were submitted by the universities and the other applicants. And it was a good process. I designated one of my senior people to be involved in that, and I consulted with them and worked with them on it, and it was a great and rewarding process, and we thank Dr. House and the staff of THEC for that. It pointed out, though, that among other things, the TCAT institutions, I believe, need more assistance in terms of the process and in terms of responding to the process and supplying applications. I think there's a great variety between the amount of expertise that's available to them to fill out the applications, to provide the justifications, all those things that universities are more used to doing in the grant writing and grant making process, et cetera. And so in the future, I think there's a need to look at our process and perhaps change it somewhat, in that regard. I don't say any of this in derogation to the list of recommended projects that's before us today, and although I've got to leave in just a few minutes because of a schedule conflict where I would vote in favor of the projects that are before us. But I just want to note that about the process, that there's a need to double down on that and be sure that we are lining up, if you will, the expertise that's available to our institutions, given the fact that some of them don't have as much expertise as others in this process. Thank you.
Great comments, Treasurer Lillard, and thank you for sharing that. Do we have any other comments before we vote on this matter? Hearing none, I will entertain a motion to approve the recommendation. We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, Madam Secretary, please call the roll.
Chairman Cope,
Aye.
Commissioner Allman, Commissioner Kingsolver,
Aye.
Commissioner Coben, Commissioner Moser,
Aye.
Commissioner Scarlett, Commissioner Stafford,
Aye.
Commissioner Wharton,
Aye.
Commissioner Winton, Secretary Hargett, Treasurer Lillard.
Aye.
Chairman, you have 11 ayes.
Very good. The motion is carried. The recommendation is approved. Thank you, Paul. All right. Next, academic programs. Dr. Julie Roberts.
Thank you, Chairman Cope, and good morning, everyone. We do have 3 programs today for your consideration, all undergraduate programs. I do want to mention for the commission members, we had laid a printed agenda item in front of you for the proposed TTU music program. We caught an error between the time you received your printed materials and today. So the only change on that agenda item is the graduation projection. So just wanted to flag that for you ahead of Dr. Bruce's presentation. So again, 3 programs. Our first program is a proposed Bachelor's of Science in Music from Tennessee Tech, and we'll hear from Dr. Lori Bruce on that program. Following that, we'll hear from Dr. Jerry Hale about the proposed Bachelor of Applied Science in Information Technology and Cybersecurity at UT Chattanooga. And then finally, we'll hear from Dr. John Zomchik at UT Knoxville about their proposed Bachelor of Science in Business Administration, Bachelor of Science in Business Administration in International Business. So with that, I'd like to invite Dr. Bruce up.
Thanks. Dr. Bruce?
Good morning, everyone. Thank you for allowing us to present to you today a proposal for a new degree program, a Bachelor of Science degree in music. The curriculum in this proposal has been developed by the outstanding faculty in our School of Music and in our College of Fine Arts. And I have with me today Dr. Jennifer Shank. She's our Dean of Fine Arts, in case we have some questions at the end that she might assist me with. So Tennessee Tech currently offers bachelor's degrees in music. These are bachelors of music. They're not Bachelor of Science degrees in music. These degree programs are in music education and in music performance. And while these degree programs continue to be successful, we have seen a growing need for a new program that provides our students with greater curricular flexibility, broader content that helps them be more career ready at time of graduation. At Tennessee Tech, we're experiencing an increase in transfer students and first-time freshmen with a significant number of student credits that are AP, dual credit, or transfer credits. And this degree program is going to help us make a degree in music more accessible to those students. So it will increase accessibility for students entering the degree program and also help with degree completion rates. Currently, our School of Music's 6-year graduation rate is several percentage points below the average for the university, and so we are looking for innovative ways to increase that. So increasing their completion rate and increasing their completion rate in a timely manner. So we also have a growing need for a new program that prepares our students, as I said, for careers that don't fit neatly into those traditional models of music performance and music education. So as the music industry has evolved, the traditional Bachelor of Music degree program, either in music education or music performance, can have a seemingly narrow focus. And so for this reason, we have developed the new Bachelor of Science degree that will create natural and less restrictive opportunities for collaboration between our College of Fine Arts and our very strong STEM and business programs already in place at Tennessee Tech. And so this will provide students with tools to creatively marry their artistic backgrounds with their love of science, technology, and business. And that's inherently positive, but from a very practical sense, in terms of career placement, that's very practically positive for the students. The Bureau of Labor Statistics states that in Tennessee, individuals with degrees in music, about, let me check my number, I wrote it down, 34.8 end up working and having careers as performing musicians or music educators. About 40% end up in the music business. And we feel that this degree program is going to help our students be more career ready, entering in and have more career options and have flexibility in their career options at time of graduation. As for accreditation, Tennessee Tech School of Music is accredited by the National Association of Schools of Music. We refer to that as NASM. And the proposed BS degree will meet both university and NASM standards to ensure our continued accreditation. So the proposed degree program aligns well with the state master plan because the new Bachelor of Science in Music is designed to further increase our already high rate of degree production. It will allow for more timely degree completion, particularly for those students entering with a lot of degree credits, transfers and freshmen with a lot of AP and dual credit. And the degree is designed to have broader applicability in the workplace. So as you can see, we've intentionally designed the program to align with the state master plan. And the proposed degree program also aligns well with the mission of Tennessee Tech. Our mission states we're a STEM-infused comprehensive institution, and we're always looking for ways to take the students not traditionally in the STEM discipline and closely marry them to our very strong STEM programs. And our mission statement also says that we will be known for our students being career ready, and this is obviously a step in that direction for our College of Fine Arts and our School of Music. So in terms of enrollment and financial projections, as with most activities at Tennessee Tech, we're being very conservative. And we're being very conservative in looking at our enrollment projections, projecting 8 in year 1 and growing to approximately 30 in year 5. And because of the design of this program, it's being added to and complementing 2 existing music programs that are already in place. And it's tapping into our existing business and STEM courses and infrastructure, Our School of Music will be able to utilize a number of resources already available on campus to launch and support the program, particularly in the first few years, the ramp-up years of this program. During those first few years, we do not expect the program to require additional new faculty or instructional space or significant additional equipment. So I want to point out one thing on this chart, the table at the bottom. I want to really be clear. Those are additional instructional costs. So the forms that we complete when we're preparing our proposals for THEC asks us, what are the additional instructional costs? So anytime we bring more students into the university, there's additional costs. There's wrapper services, counseling services, advising, career placement services. So this table is only showing, taking quite literally, the additional instructional costs for the students coming, for us to be able to handle this level of students in this program. And if the enrollment grows beyond what is projected here, we feel that that 30 enrollment is kind of a tipping point where we would start to have to hire more faculty and expand in spaces. But in those first few ramp-up years, the additional instructional costs are very minimal, and so we'll be able to invest the tuition and fees back into the student services and the existing programs, all of the infrastructure to support as an aggregate all of the programs in the School of Music. So with that, I will open up to any questions you might have of me.
Thanks, Dr. Bruce. Questions? Okay.
Move approval.
Yes, sir. We have a motion to approve. Is there a second? We have a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, Madam Secretary, please call the roll.
Chairman Cope,
Aye.
Commissioner Allman, Commissioner Kingsolver,
Aye.
Commissioner Coben, Commissioner Moser,
Aye.
Commissioner Scarlett, Commissioner Stafford,
Aye.
Commissioner Wharton,
Aye.
Commissioner Winton, Secretary Hargett, Treasurer Lillard, Comptroller Mumpower.
Yes.
Chairman, you have 11 ayes.
Thank you. The motion's carried. The program's approved. Congratulations.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Did you look and introduce the next one? Okay. All right. So next we have the UT Chattanooga Information Technology and Cybersecurity Bachelor of Applied Science, and I think we have Dr. Jerry Hale presenting. Dr. Hale?
Members of the Commission, thank you very much for the opportunity to advocate on behalf of a program that we think is both very unique and very important for our region. I say that the program is unique, and it's unique for three reasons. It's unique, first of all, in the target audience for the program. If you look at the target audience for the program, we're really targeting transfer students from TBR institutions who have completed AA or AAS degrees. A secondary market for us would be transfer students from other institutions, but the important thing is that those students will come to us with their general educational requirements completed, so they'll be able to dive right into the curriculum that we have proposed. The other information technology and or cybersecurity programs in the state primarily have as a target audience matriculating high school graduates who are coming to them as first-time freshman students. And so that's one thing that makes the program unique. A second thing that makes the program unique is the duration and the nature of the structure of the program. Currently at UTC, in any semester, we have three terms in which students can enroll. There is a through term or a full term of enrollment, and those are typically 15-week classes that last throughout the entire semester. However, in each semester, we also have what we at UTC refer to as part of term 1 and part of term 2 classes, and those part of term classes are accelerated semesters embedded within the full semester, and those are typically 7-week classes. What we envision for this program is that students will complete the program in a 12-month period of time, enrolling in 6 of those part of term semesters, or 6 of those part of terms, And that's also very different than any of the other programs that are offered in the state. The closest thing to it would be the ETSU Blue Sky Institute, which is a different degree completely than what we're offering, and even that one is offered on a 27-month calendar instead of a 12-month calendar. So that's the second thing that we think is innovative about what's being proposed. The third thing that's innovative about what's being proposed is the daily internship component that's a very integral part of this degree. Of the other information technology and or cybersecurity programs that are offered in the state, the only one that requires an internship for completion of the degree is the one at Lipscomb University, and it is 1 semester. It is not a daily internship requirement. We believe that the work experience that students will get while getting this degree is a really important part of the process. So those are the 3 elements that I think make this degree program that we are proposing especially unique. What I think makes it important are a few things, and again, 3. First of all, it aligns very well with the state master plan and also with the University of Tennessee system and UTC strategic plans in a few important ways. And the 2 that are I think, most important for me are, first of all, it aligns with workforce development priorities that I think are very important. And the second one is that it captures efficiencies and collaborations in that we will be working very closely with our TBR partners. And to me, that's an especially important part of this degree program. It is also important, though, in the sense that it is going to meet a very important workforce development demand and priority for the state. That's evinced in the documents that you were provided in 2 ways. First of all, by the letters of support from some of the largest employers and major companies in East Tennessee and in the Chattanooga metropolitan area. And then secondly, it is also provided in the supporting data on job growth related to information technology and cybersecurity, and in data presented to you that shows a gap between the demand for such jobs and the supply of prepared workers who are able to fill those opportunities. Importantly, one of the things that you would have read in the new academic proposal that was submitted is that some of the jobs that are in demand are jobs that are really management sorts of jobs, and I want to address that with you very directly. Out of all of the programs in the state dealing with information technology and cybersecurity, there is only one, and I'd like to give some props to my sister campus at UT Southern, that requires any sort of management coursework in completing the degree. This degree does not, and I want to be upfront with you about that. But as we have talked with our industry partners in preparing this new academic proposal for you, what we've been told is that the management preparation and the preparation for those sorts of jobs comes from the workplace itself, in addition to whatever learning might occur in the classroom. And so what we lack in terms of the classroom preparation in that regard, we believe that we more than make up for with the internship that is a daily internship for them over the 12-month period of time that they're working. So we come at it from a slightly different approach than our sister campus, but we believe that we still go a long way in meeting the same demand. And I think that's an important thing for me to emphasize as well. And that's why the daily work experience piece, I think, is so important to this particular degree program. And it's something that's also lacking in all of the other programs that exist around the state. And finally, I think the degree program is an especially important one because of both the enrollment that we project, the graduation rate that we project from it, and also the financials. And I want to briefly address those with you. The program will operate in cohorts, and for the first 2 years, we will admit 2 cohorts per year. After year 2, we'll be admitting 3 cohorts per year. And that's important for a few reasons. You've heard mentioned a couple of times today about students who occasionally have life interfere for one reason or another and stop out of a program. The nice thing about the rolling admission process that we have and the cohorts that we have that will be admitted 3 times a year is that if life interferes with a student and he or she needs to step out for a while, they don't have to step out for a year or longer in order to re-enter the program. If they are able to do so, they can step back in with the next cohort and pick up where they left off without much of a problem. And we think that that's a real advantage to what's been proposed here. In addition to that, we also project a 75% graduation rate. I will tell you that joyfully for me, when I made this presentation to our Board of Trustees last week, a couple of the trustees grabbed me after I got done and said, "We think your graduation rate projections are really conservative. I would rather be conservative in making them to you, but I'm hoping that they're correct and that I'm being overly conservative in what I'm presenting to you." And third, with regard to the financials, we think it's very important for you to know that what we are presenting here in terms of financial projections for the program, this program is not in any way intended to be a profit center for the university. The money that comes into the program will be reinvested in the program, both in order to help us keep up with the technology needs that come along with offering a program of this sort, and in paying for additional faculty members as the program grows and staff members to offer student support services that may be needed. Thank you for your time. I'd be happy to take any questions that you might have.
Thank you. Any questions for Dr. Hale? Yes, sir.
So in relation, because obviously you said that they don't have any, the degree itself doesn't have any management requirements in terms of courses, but you said it would be covered within the internships. Is there a specific set of internships where they're going to have opportunities to be able to be either put in those management situations or shadow someone who's in a management situation?
We have some suggestions from many of the community partners whose materials you'll see in the new academic proposal, that would be a part of what they're doing, but they also believe that students will pick that up just by being in those working environments and observing the managers that they're looking for or working for. I'm sorry.
And the internships through the duration of that program, correct?
Yes, it is.
Thank you.
Other questions for Dr. Hale? Commissioner Scarlett?
Dr. Hill, I start with a comment. I applaud this program and your approach to this, and specifically the apprenticeship or the internship approach. I think it's so well needed in so many of the growing jobs of today, so thank you for pulling this together. You've answered my question about the managerial piece, because that was also a question I had in regards to if it's expectation, what do businesses really need? So I'm happy to hear that you already partner with the businesses on that approach and what's needed inside of their interns. Question for you in regards to the partnership with the community colleges in that area. Are they already aligned to being able to help guide students through the transfer process? Because I know that some students don't necessarily get guided down a pathway to transfer to another program, whereas others do. So I'm kind of curious to know what sort of conversations are happening there.
Well, we worked closely with the 2 TBR schools that are closest to us geographically, Cleveland State and Chattanooga State, and we feel very comfortable with the guidance that those students will be getting. You will also see, I think, in the new academic proposal, the survey data that was collected from the students at those institutions, and that was done with the institution's knowledge. So they know what we're planning, and they are excited about the opportunities to partner with us. I believe that over time we will have even more interest from some of the other TBR schools that are a bit further away from us. But primarily, we believe, at least in the initial few cohorts, most of the students for the program will come within 50 square miles of the Chattanooga metropolitan area.
Other questions? Very good. Yes, sir. We have a motion to approve. Is there a second? Second. We have a second. Madam Secretary, call the roll, please.
Chairman Cope,
Aye.
Commissioner Allman. Aye. Commissioner Kingsolver,
Aye.
Commissioner Coben. Aye. Commissioner Moser,
Aye.
Commissioner Scarlett. Aye. Commissioner Stafford,
Aye.
Commissioner Wharton,
Aye.
Commissioner Winton, Secretary Hargett, Comptroller Mumpower. Chairman, you have 9 ayes.
Yes.
Oh, 10
Good.
ayes.
10 now. Okay, great. Well, congratulations. Your program's approved.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Okay, last academic program for consideration today is the University of Tennessee Knoxville International Business Bachelor of Science in Business Administration. Dr. Zomchek.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Good morning. Commissioners, pleasure to stand here before you this morning and recommend to you a program that is being proposed on our behalf for our Haslam College of Business. It is a Bachelor's of Science in Business Administration, International Business. I'll be brief. The purpose of this program is to prepare our students, or some of our students, in our Haslam College of Business to participate fully in the increasingly international business marketplace by providing them with the competencies necessary in order to function at the most high level. Those competencies include things like a firm foundation in fundamental business practices, a firm foundation in international competencies, and communication in at least high communication skills in at least 2 languages, English and a target international language. The audience for this, let me say that our Haslam College of Business has seen phenomenal growth over the last several years. Just to give you an instance, last year we had 6,100 students enrolled as majors in the Haslam College of Business. That's in fall of 2021. In fall of 2022, as of today, I checked just this morning, we have 7,303 for a growth of about 17 to 19% of our students who are choosing to major in the Haslam College of Business. That college is attracting talented and dedicated students who want to serve the state and who are looking for opportunities to bring the strengths of the state across the country and beyond our national borders. One of the things about this particular degree program is that it will add only 1 course to existing courses. It will be a double major. That is to say that students will take 15 hours in a business major like marketing or supply chain or any of the business majors that we offer, and 15 hours in international business. In addition to this, students will be required to take 9 hours of a language at the intermediate level, at the advanced level rather, beyond the 200 level. And that makes this program rather unique. They will also be required to spend a semester studying abroad where they will get most of the credit hours for their international business degree. You see that there is a program given by our colleagues at the University of Memphis. We differ from them, and that's a single major. This is a double major. We have a required study abroad component to it, and our language is, again, at the advanced level. So comparable programs are beyond the state, outside the state's borders, in South Carolina and in Arkansas. When we think about how this aligns both with the state master plan and the university's master plan, the first thing that comes to mind is that there are over 1,000 international businesses investing in the state at this time, which makes the state of Tennessee second among 50 for foreign direct investment. We believe that this program will provide students an opportunity to engage with those international businesses and perhaps work to attract more to the state. In terms of our the university strategic plan, it is in line, as you see there, with preparing students to be leaders in their professions, in their communities, and in the state. Finally, let me turn to our projections for enrollment, revenues, and expenditures. As I said, only one new course needs to be developed in order to make this new major work, and that's the capstone course. That's why you see there the expenditures at such a low rate. The enrollment projections, as our outside consultant pointed out, are quite modest, but we want to project in a modest way. We think that we could at least double those. For example, right now, there is currently in the Haslam College of Business both a concentration and a collateral in international business. Put those two together, there are more than 500, well, maybe not quite that, over 400 students who are in those concentrations and in collateral. We have 83 students in Haslam who are currently dual majoring in a foreign language. This program would be custom made for them. And I think as we attract more students to the Haslam College of Business, this will be one more opportunity for them to think about how they can take their education and connect it with their passions and contribute to the state. Thank you so much for this opportunity. I'm happy to take any questions you might have.
That's great. Thank you so much. We have questions. Commissioner Holman.
Move to approve.
Is there a motion to approve? Is there a second? We have a second. All in favor? Well, we need to call the roll. Madam Secretary.
Chairman Coe?
Aye.
Commissioner Altman? Aye. Commissioner Keensolver?
Aye.
Commissioner Cohen? Aye. Commissioner Miller?
Aye.
Commissioner Scarlett? Aye. Commissioner Stafford?
Aye.
Commissioner Ward?
Aye.
Commissioner Lindsey? Aye.
Aye.
Very good. The motion's carried. The program's approved.
Thank you very
Congratulations. You're welcome. Okay, the last item on our agenda is a presentation of the Tennessee College of Applied Technology Master Plan. We'll call on Woody Giles, please, to make the presentation.
Thank you, Chairman Cope. Good morning, members of the Commission. Glad to be with you again. I'm Woody Giles with DLR Group and excited to present to you the TCAT statewide master plan. We actually have two title slides today because this is a logo for the master plan that was designed by TCAT students from TCAT Crump. We had a little competition among graphic design students statewide, and this was the winning entry, so really proud to be featuring this student work as part of the plan. It wasn't that long ago when we were before you last time presenting the previous master plan, 2014, and the reason we're back so quickly is that so much has happened, which I'll talk about in a minute, but this is really a unique way to approach a master plan because the same master plan looks at all TCATs in one document. Community colleges and other institutions have their separate one, but this is a statewide plan. This looks at every state-owned campus, not the leased sites, and is the result of really comprehensive on-site engagement. So my team and I'm with DLR Group. I was with TSW, another planning firm when we started this, and TSW has supported this process throughout, but we visited every TCAT campus in this state in the past year or two, so really exciting to see what's going on all of those campuses. But we met with faculty there, met with each president, met with the Regional Advisory Council to understand what's going on in this region and how are the TCATs meeting those needs, and really compile all of that into the plan. Part of our effort was also updating the THEC space guidelines, and I can answer any questions about that, but some minor updates to how we look at space needs for the TCATs.
Question.
Yes, sir.
Succinctly as possible, what emphasis was given to addressing the concern raised by Commissioner Lillard about the age and the age condition of many of the facilities? I don't need a campus by campus, but just tell me what emphasis was given to that.
No, that's a great point, and I'm glad he brought that up and glad that many of you had the opportunity to see some of these campuses. We actually looked at the age of the facilities and the needs of each campus, and then created a group of the highest need campuses, which you'll see in a second, and that was really how we structured our recommendations around making sure that those campuses got the facilities that they need, but also addressing needs statewide, because there are some other campuses that are not from the 1960s that still have needs, but that was absolutely our focus.
Thank you.
So my numbers of investment spent since the last master plan was 97 million. I actually believe that's significantly more than that. So almost every project in the previous plan has been implemented, which is sort of a planner's dream. So really exciting to see a lot of new buildings, additions, and new campus sites, including getting to see all those firsthand as we toured the state. But as was mentioned, there's a lot of very old facilities. This pie chart shows square feet at all TCAT by the decade constructed, and you can see more than half of the square feet is more than 50 years old. That may be okay for a building with a different construction type, but these are very simple buildings, concrete block, and so they're really not designed to last more than 50 years. And a lot has changed in the world of technical education since these were built. So they're just not very adaptable. The TCATs are doing a great job with what they have. We spoke with a lot of presidents and instructors who are making do with these older spaces, doing an excellent job at teaching the skills they need to, getting their graduates jobs, but we really are recommending that they up their game and not just make do with what they've got, but get the modern facilities that they should have. This is an article we came across from the 1960s from a TCAT campus the day it opened. This is a machine shop. I won't mention the TCAT, but the sad thing is that walking into the shop today, you see most of the same stuff, and at a lot of TCATs, the equipment is still from the 1960s. The buildings, in a lot of cases, the windows and a lot of building elements are still original. So again, they're doing a great job with what they've got, but not up to par in terms of a modern technical education and what we're seeing in some peer systems. So I mentioned the high-need campuses. This was based on a combination of factors, looking at the facility's condition and age, as well as the space needs and other considerations. These are the list of campuses that we think should be the priorities for investment, but as I mentioned, a lot of recommendations at other campuses as well. Because this is sort of 30 master plans in one, I can't go through and show you each campus and what we're recommending. Happy to answer any questions, and I believe you'll receive a link soon to the complete report if you're interested in a specific campus. But just to hit a few highlights, a number of campuses, all of the facilities have reached the end of their useful lives, and so we're recommending a total campus replacement. Some of these are new sites, like TCAT Paris's Henry County campus, which you approved earlier this morning. Some of them could be phased replacements on site, where one building is built new, the building is torn down, another building is built new, another building is torn down. So the list you're seeing on screen right now is the campuses we're proposing be totally or almost totally replaced over the lifetime of the master plan. There's a number of other campuses that have aging facilities, but we're recommending a new building or new buildings and preserving some of what's there. You can see these on screen now. Because of the nature of the TCATs and how quickly they move, especially to respond to specific industries, some of these are already in process. We wanted to make sure that they're all captured in the master plan, but some of these projects may be familiar to you. A few more projects continued here with new buildings and some of the programs that will go in, and then a couple of additions. So a lot more that I'm not able to touch in on all of the campuses that we looked at, but that's a very high level summary. We're also recommending a number of new campuses. Again, some of these have already been talked about, and you'll see Blue Oval City, which we know is already underway, but just wanting to make sure everything is captured in the master plan. A lot of these, Dr. Tidings earlier showed that map of all of the TBR facilities statewide, and there's great coverage today, but some of these are meeting some of the gaps in those locations and helping reach specifically some of the more rural areas. So with that, I will take any questions.
Thanks, Mr. Giles. Questions on this? This is just an information item, by the way. We're not voting on it, but. Okay.
So specifically, I know on one of those campuses it was talking about replacing this TCAT Harriman, and I have been there once, and it did seem to be a blast from the past. It shows that, are they temporarily moving all their courses and their work to the Harriman or to their own state campus? And then are they rebuilding a new facility, or are they just going to permanently move and have a presence on site at Roan State?
The plan for TCAT Harriman, as I understand it, is to continue on their existing site while they build a new campus on Roan State's main campus, move everything over, and then that would be the new campus. And there's a couple of other TCATs that also were recommending that, so that would be a total replacement. We're also saying in the master plan, we know that some of these opportunities come up unexpectedly, and so if there are any other TCATs that we're talking about a phased replacement or major investments on that site, and someone has a partnership or new land where a new campus could be built, that's an excellent way to meet the same needs.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I also want to say, just from the K-12 perspective, anytime there can be the co-location with a high school, a community college, and a college of applied technology in the same place, you are able to overcome so many boundaries. I mean, if you think about it, right, we have the Supreme Court that tells us there's got to be busing, right? Doesn't say busing for higher education, but it does say we've got to expend our public dollars to make certain that folks are bused through high school. So the matter of transportation and just the distance that seems small to so many has been a barrier for so long that, you know, anytime I hear about a TCAT, a community college, being walking distance on the same campus across the road from a high school facility, you're talking about what absolutely ought to be the wave of the future. We owe it to the citizens of Tennessee to make sure that that's the norm as much as it can be done, and it's just makes me happy to see it as much as it's happening in that list.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more, and it was really exciting having visited all the TCAT campuses back in 2014 for that master plan, and coming back now, you saw the dual enrollment numbers, but we also just witnessed firsthand the number of relationships that have started and strengthened with local K-12 systems, and the number of teaching sites, which in the previous master plan tended to be more leased spaces in a shopping center or something. Now almost all of those are on high school campus sites. But the challenge there is that there's been a lot of investment in high school facilities in the past couple of decades in Tennessee, and so some of the students are coming from a new or relatively new high school. If they're coming then full-time to the TCAT, they're seeing a much more dated facility, so there's really a need for investment there.
Other questions or comments? Okay, very good. Thank you so much, Mr. Giles, for the presentation. We're at the end of our agenda items here, and so I want to take an opportunity to thank Dr. House and THEC staff for another excellent meeting and your always excellent work. Thank you very much for that. And open the floor if there are any other additional comments before we close. Our next meeting will be January the 27th in the year 2023. And again, any comments, closing comments or questions?
Lunch is upstairs.
Lunch is upstairs. 8th floor. 8th floor. Okay.
That's always important, lunch.
That's
Gotta
right.
have lunch.
Most important announcement.
Very good. If there are no other questions or comments, I'll declare the meeting adjourned.